well, look at the top 2 cards of the deck, attack extra energies. But even with those big losses, these 2 decks have both found ways to adapt to the current metagame, and both of these are still very, very strong contenders to win any tournament because of it.
So a big thing in a lot of the matchups in this format, right, as we look through this, is that coin flip, and more importantly, those early turns. How important is it, for Benny to have a super strong setup turn compared to, Lugia getting out those turn 2 Archeops? Or, if it goes perfectly, is one player at more of an advantage if both players set up?
I think a lot of it comes down to whether the Lugia player can get an early KO. That, I think, is the big thing, because if the Gardevoir player can get set up fully, especially get those tools down, get those single prize attackers going, it becomes very hard for the Lugia player to catch up. One big thing is going to be whether there can be an early Iron Hands EX. That will then put the trade more in the Lugia player's favor, because you can then even out that prize trade against those single prize attackers. So that's going to be a big part of it here, and either a big setup and avoiding KOs, or on the Lugia player's side, that Iron Hands EX. And oh my goodness, those Ultra Ball prizes.
Yep, there are definitely a few of those prizes. That is the key setup, right, for this Lugia Archeops deck. You put the Archeops in the discard pile, and then that Summoning Star, the Star Power, allows you to take those 2 non-rule box colorless Pokemon, Archeops indeed, and then put them onto your bench, sort of, cheating them out into play. Benny will be going first, and that is a big advantage in this matchup to try and, put some pressure on as we get our stage set for our 3rd Swiss round here at LAIC. The tension is building, the hype is increasing, and we will see who continues at a perfect 3-0 record.
Now, going into this, we talked about how, Benny, first time in Masters. Very important to note, we have mentioned a couple of times already, Giovanni Sasso, of course, who has had an absolutely insane first year as a Masters player. A lot of these players who age up seem to, if they've done well in the previous divisions, they age up and do very, very well. And I don't know, I expect Benny to be the same here.
Time will tell, as Benny does kick things off, going first, and does start that Radiant Greninja immediately using that Concealed Cards ability. Does 2 things for this deck. Number 1, it draws cards. That is never bad in the Pokemon TCG. But number 2, it puts those Psychic Energy into the discard pile, which can fuel that Gardevoir EX's Psychic Embrace ability. And to top that off, does have Buddy Buddy Poffin, the key cornerstone card for a bunch of these Stage 1, Stage 2 decks, getting those basic Pokemon into play, as long as they do have 70 or less HP.
Yeah, really strong there with the concealed cards, like you said, pulling double duty. And this Buddy Buddy Poffin also pulling double duty in a sense, because like you just said, you use it set up, you can get out your Evolving Basics, and that's all good. But in this instance, Benny will be able to use it to get out, we can see it being eyed up already, that Spiritomb, which shuts down the abilities of basic V Pokemon.
Fettered in Misfortune. That is definitely somewhere where you do not want to mess with that Pokemon. This Spiritomb shutting down all basic V Pokemon's abilities, and mainly it will be that Lumineon V, which does have the Luminous Sign ability. As a V Pokemon basic, when you bench it, you can search your deck for a supporter card, and this is a very solid turn for Benny. Exactly what you want. All of these basic Pokemon into play, and action will be on Gabriel to see what he can do in order to keep up with a very strong setup turn from Benny.
Yeah, 3 Ultra Ball prize is going to make things very, very tough, because, like we were mentioning earlier, it's going to be quite hard to get those Archeops in the discard pile, so you can then put them back onto the bench with the Summoning Star ability from the Lugia V-Star. But it looks like we're starting off with Capturing Aroma here. Going to be a Tails. Now, like we just mentioned, with that Fettered in Misfortune ability on the Spiritomb, the Lumineon V is not going to be an option, although we do see him eyeing it up, so hope Gabriel realizes what's going on here and doesn't decide to bench that one, because otherwise he might be in a very big spot of bother. But no, spotting it and instead going to go for that Squawkabilly EX, which does, of course, have that ability that on your first turn of the game, you can use the ability, discard your hand, and draw 6 cards. Very, very solid turn 1 setup Pokemon.
Yeah, Squawkabilly is a card that, saw not a lot of play in Lugia since the rotation, when it lost a lot of its very powerful pieces. Players saw it as, too much of a liability or not the main focus. Why put a Pokemon into play that you're not even going to use all the time if you have it in your deck? But you can see here, it is a great way to sort of bypass the disruptive aspects of a card like Spiritomb. We will just see the Squawk and Seize ability be used. Discarding the hand here, Gabriel can only use that ability on the first turn, but does draw into 6 cards. Notably, does get rid of that first Archeops, so that is 1 Archeops in the discard pile. And a very interesting choice there, Freya. Had both Stadium cards, the Mesagoza and the Jamming Tower. A lot of people would consider just trying to get another Archeops in the discard pile, but getting rewarded for that Jamming Tower can have a huge impact on a lot of what Benny is trying to put together in this matchup.
Well, in this matchup specifically, especially, it is very, very important. This would be one of the reasons why Gabriel's opting to play that Jamming Tower. It does, of course, shut off all Pokemon tool cards in play, and a lot of Benny's really powerful plays involve putting on HP buffing tools on his Pokemon so he can get off big attacks with attackers like Stream Tail and with Drifloon. So actually very, very good that Gabriel got that down.
And this is the format in a nutshell. Benny is going to be under pressure fast in this case. Gabriel is threatening a turn to amp you very much. On Benny's side, though, does have Arven as the supporter of choice. Gets to search for a Pokemon tool card and an item card. And with that Evolution TM, that Technical Machine Evolution already in hand, this is an instance where Benny, you know, may not be able to deal big damage. That's not really the MO of this Gardevoir deck. It's a lot more slow, methodical, trying to develop super strong late games, while this Lugia deck can be very aggro and aggressive early on. It'll be interesting to see what the choice is, and there is that ace-back. Secret Box has started to slowly make its way into Gardevoir and has changed the entire dynamic of how this deck is not only built, but how these early turns are played out.
And this is so huge, right? Because like you were just mentioning, not only do you want to shut off the tools on the Lugia side to stop those later attacks, but of course very vital that early setup with the TM Evolution gets shut off as well. But with the Secret Box off of this Arven, now Benny can go and search for a counter stadium from the deck, get rid of that Jamming Tower, and suddenly that TM Evolution play is live again.
He does only play one stadium, but that's all you need. It's a card we don't see a lot in this deck, but has made an appearance recently. That Moonlit Hill can also get rid of potentially another Psychic Energy later down the line. Speaking of Psychic Energies, we'll see the Earthen Vessel get rid of that second copy of Arven to find these two Psychic Energies. And with this Jamming Tower gone, Radiant Greninja can start to not only, if Benny wants to, draw some more cards with concealed cards, but with a single attachment and that tool card, the Technical Machine Evolution, can evolve some of these Ralts into Kirlia, set up that draw engine, and get Benny established in this game.
Yeah, this is about as good a turn 2 as Benny could ask for. Now, of note on Gabriel's side, we did see actually at the end of the turn, there was that Read the Wind discarding a second Archeops from the hand. So all but Gabriel will need on the next turn to get a good attack going is to find that Lugia V-Star, and that Summoning Star will be able to bring out both the Archeops, and then we would be more than likely seeing an Amp very much going off. But yeah, still a good, very good second turn from Benny regardless, but Gabriel was very well set up here as well.
And so there it is. We're going to see the Technical Machine Evolution after one of these Kirlia got evolved. So Benny was able to draw a few more cards thanks to that refinement ability. And the whole squad is here. 3 Kirlias into play as action is now back onto Gabriel. And with an aggressive deck like this, you need to be taking 2 prize cards with Ampu very much this turn. If not, you're going to be in a tough spot. But that is a great step 1. The Jet Energy allowing the Pokemon it's attached to switch into the active spot. No questions asked. And as long as there's that Legacy Energy, which we saw not prized, as well as a Lugia V-Star, then Gabriel's cooking. He's got all he needs to put on a lot of aggression extremely fast.
Yeah. Now he's playing the Nest Ball here. Doesn't want to put anything down with that. Of course, there are only 2 bench slots left, so if he does that, he will only be able to get out 1 Archeops. But again, then after that, yeah, nothing off the Nest Ball. Going to go ahead and play that Professor's Research. Needs to find the Lugia V-Star, but also importantly, needs to not draw the Legacy Energy, because if he does, he won't be able to attach it from the deck with the ability of the Archeops. But it looks like, oh, it's going to have to be a Capturing Aroma.
I think we're flipping. If it's a heads, it's big.
Oh, it's a tails.
Wow, a big miss here for Gabriel, and that's really the byproduct of 3 of those Ultra Balls being in the prize cards. A great consistent way to search out your Lugia V-Star, usually when they are in the deck, but in this case, them being prized limited the outs for Gabriel to draw into his cards to find Lugia V-Star, and now will not only be dealing no damage this turn, but is going to leave this Iron Hands in the active spot. And if Benny can find a way to knock this out, not only will he take the first 2 prize cards in this match, but he will also get rid of a huge offensive threat on Gabriel's side.
That's so rough. That Capturing Aroma heads was absolutely everything. The difference in the strength of that turn, depending on that heads or tails, cannot be understated. And yet, like you just said, now just going to have to passive an Iron Hands in the active. And you know, Benny had pretty much the perfect turn too. So there's going to be, what, 8 cards drawn here off of 3 refinements and then the concealed cards. That, like, Benny could do whatever he wants almost.
This is what you dream of if you're a Gardevoir player. You have access to everything at your disposal. You get to draw 8 cards here if you want to, and only have to discard 4. And as we mentioned, discarding cards is more than welcome. You see all of those Psychic Energies starting to hit hit the discard pile, those will be fueled from that Psychic Embrace ability on Gardevoir. And now the big question here, can Benny not only get that Gardevoir EX, which it looks like is already in the hand, but can he find something like the Drifloon, a great attacker paired with the Bravery Charm, synergizes great with this Psychic Embrace ability. It allows you to, as often as you'd like, put 2 damage counters on a Pokemon for every Psychic Energy you attach, and with that Drifloon, it has a excellent attack, 30 damage for each damage counter on the Pokemon, and with 4 Psychic Embrace abilities, which we will see here, plenty of Psychic Energy in the discard pile. Drifloon will deal enough damage to take the Iron Hands down and put Gabriel in a extremely tough, might I say difficult, almost unwinnable situation with how consistent his board is and the pressure is.
I mean, in a situation like this, you already struggle, even if you manage to get an Iron Hands KO. If the Gardevoir player can respond straight away on the Iron Hands, you're already in trouble. In this situation, not only has Benny got an instant KO on the Iron Hands, but it was without Gabriel even be able to attack with it. So now you're 2 prizes behind, and you have no way to trade well. What do you do if you're Gabriel here?
You got to start attacking, and it all rounds this Lugia V-Star. Can Gabriel find that Lugia? And there is just so much going on the bench, not to mention Squawkabilly EX. Like we said, a very powerful ability, but a big liability down the line. Fezandipity EX is a liability sometimes, but it's at the trade-off of that super powerful Flip the Script ability. And does find a very interesting card there, that Thornton supporter card. Now, however, Thornton does only work on basics.
Hold on, Messagosa does flip. Oh, there's the heads, though!
It is a heads. That is, again, step 1 for Gabriel. He can now get that Lugia V-Star into play. But, I mean, the question here for me, Freya, is it a little bit too little, too late?
I think it might be. I think your best play, if you're Gabriel here, is if you can, you load up this Chinchino and KO the Gardevoir, because that way then at least you force Benny to find a boss's order just to KO another 2 prizer, whilst you're still taking 2 prizes yourself. But it feels like a lot to ask for, and even if you do that, the way that you trade later on in the game just seems very rough. Oh, but there we do see that Thornton swapping out for the Iron Hands EX, like you're drawing attention to.
This is what you have to do in this situation. You've got to start taking pressure. You've got to start putting aggression and hope that there's maybe no answer this time to the Iron Hands. We will see the attachment for turn to this Chinchino, so, if Gabriel maybe had just brought up a different basic Pokemon, something like, the Squawkabilly to start the turn, could have saved this attachment, as this Chinchino will now have to retreat out of the active spot in order to allow Iron Hands to attack. So, every energy can matter in matchups like this.
It sure can, but I think in that instance, because the Thornton was a find off of the Flip the Script, right? So you didn't want to take the risk necessarily of not finding it. It was a play that opened up suddenly because the Fezandipity flipped the script and found the Thornton there to make this play possible. So yeah, there we go. 2 Primal Turbos happening, double turbo going on, and then a Gift Energy and a Legacy Energy for good measure. This is a way that not only for Iron Hands to be able to actually attack, but to kind of force a better prize trade. And in it comes the Ampy very much to take out this Drifloon. A really about as good a counterplay as Gabriel could ask for.
A great response indeed, tying things up at 4 prizes apiece. But for Benny, there's really nothing stopping him from kind of just doing it all over again. No hand disruption. Of course, that supporter card for turn was played for Gabriel to Thornton and switch out that liability of the Squawkabilly for a threat in Iron Hands EX. Let's see what Benny can put together. But again, when you give this Gardevoir deck what many would consider a combo deck, a lot of pieces to start the turn off, and then you add consistent draw with these Hurlias and the Greninja, things get very difficult. That's just an extra, cherry on top here for Benny. Flipping heads on Gabriel, his opponent's Stadium, the Nezagoza, so can search out any Pokemon he chooses. And it looks like thinking about grabbing Ralts. Now, there is only 1 spot left on the bench, so I'm not sure we're going to see necessarily the Gardevoir, get be the sole attacker of choice. Now, Benny does have, again, a lot of options, but these are things to consider. Your bench is a little bit clogged. See how Benny decides to navigate and commit that last spot to which Pokemon in this case.
Yeah, that's the thing with the Spiritomb, right? Because obviously it's a great thing to bench early on because it is something that stifles the setup of the Lugia deck a lot. But after that point, it's sure, it can maybe stop a late game Luminous Sign for a boss's orders, but it is taking up a lot of space on the bench. So yeah, only really 1 slot left to attack with. We do see that Screen Tail in the hand, so maybe maybe that could be an option to, he can get enough damage on it. So, of course, the Scream Tails attack can hit anything, not just the active like Drifloon, but anything, and it does do, like the Drifloon, more damage for every damage counter on it. You can maybe take out that Pheasantipity EX, just to stop some extra draws and some extra recovery that way, combine it with some kind of disruption supporter. There's a few different ways you could go about it, but I'm sure Benny has the right plan for the moment.
Yeah, it's tough since you got to kind of, juggle two things in this situation. The Iron Hands is the biggest threat, but it also has that legacy energy protecting it from giving up more prize cards. So if you're Benny, especially when you're dealing with an aggressive deck like Lugia V-Star, you've got to think to yourself, what is the fastest way I can win this game without giving my opponent an opening on the other end? And I think in this position, Benny understands that with there being two prize Pokemon on the bench, it may be best, since the Iron Hands did not take the first two prizes, to just kind of ignore it in this case. That boss's orders was taking off the prizes, so I wonder, does Benny want to play that powerful supporter right now? And in combination with that Adrenabrain on the Monkey Dory, which just came down and was just activated thanks to that Darkness energy being attached, could take out Pheasantipity and just leave that Lugia V-Star as a potential final target towards the end of the game. We'll see what ends up being the choice, or a different play in this case of just not taking prize cards at all.
Yeah, I think this is going to be the play. So you could attach the free energy with the Psychic Embrace, then you put 6 damage counters on, move 3 across, and then you attack with Miracle Force on the Gardevoir, and then you leave this Iron Hands on enough HP left to be KO'd with Monkey Dory to follow up next turn for a 4-prize turn.
And this is really just, again, going back to the fact that this format has been explored for so long and so many, months, that a player like Lugia, in this case, playing a way to, maybe pick up this Pokemon or discard it or negate this turn is not very likely. Gabriel understands that Monkey Dory will be the key to victory here for Benny and targets it down with the boss's orders, so it will bring that up into the active spot. However, the one thing to note is because of that double turbo energy, Ampu very much is not doing enough damage to knock out the Monkey Dory. That is something to, consider a little bit here if you're Gabriel, since that math really does matter.
So, you'd have to sort of do a Primal Turbo retreat and then Jet Energy, right? But he's already used both his Primal Turbo, so yeah, he's not going to be able to get KO, and I think he's just realized.
I think he has. I think he realized now the double Turbo Energy usually is not super consequential when you're knocking out Kirlias, you're knocking Ralts out, even Radiant Greninja because of weakness gets knocked out, but this crucial error on Gabriel's side may have just cost him the game. You see him shaking his head, asking himself, I may have had a path back into this game, and with that simple mistake, it's all going to waste. We're going to see the Iron Hands fully retreat off. Bye-bye Legacy Energy, bye-bye attacking threat. Just going to take the knockout here with Chinchino, but again, Benny did not have his hand disrupted, so there is a very clear path here to winning the game if he could have a few pieces to, remove some Pokemon out of play, get another Adrenabrain online. Benny has just had even more tempo, even more advantage in this situation.
Oh, that's absolutely brutal. I wonder, did you have the Jet Energy in hand? Could he have done the alternative otherwise to make that work with the retreat, or did he not even have it?
Well, you can't retreat there, right? Since if you retreat, you're going to discard that Legacy Energy, so you're not going to have that access.
But you can Primal Turbo and then retreat and jet back into the active. That would have been a way to do it, so you can get rid of double Turbo. But I guess it's hard to say it as well. That would have been a way to still get the KO on the Monkey Dory with the Iron Hands if you could just discard retreat after a Primal Turbo to get rid of the double Turbo.
We will never know at this point.
Yeah.
That ship has long sailed.
Sure has.
Benny has continued this up with a very powerful combination of the Super Rod to put the Monkey Dory back in the deck, and then an Earthen Vessel to find the Dark Energy that was also put back, and now the Ultra Ball can find Monkey Dory. I wonder, does Benny have the pieces needed to close this game out?
I think I saw the Dark in hand, and there's the Monkey Dory in the deck, so yeah, I think it's all there. As long as there's some kind of way to just do an easy 210 damage. Actually, that might be the one tricky thing, because I don't know if you can take 4 prizes this turn, because I think both the Pheasantipity and the Lugia are too bulky HP-wise, but you also don't need to win this turn, right? Not with the turn that Gabriel just took.
Yeah, of note, there is that Professor Turo's scenario, so that could, open the bench space up, and Benny's got a lot of ability to dig here. The concealed cards can be used off of those energies.
And a Counter Catcher! That'll do it!
The Counter Catcher will do it. That is true. Benny did not take those prize cards, so Gabriel putting himself at another disadvantage. However, there is still that last piece missing, so we're going to just see...
the Turo, right?
Well, it does need the Turo, that is true. Well, the Turo wouldn't even necessarily get it there since there's a couple pieces, missing. You'd have to get it through there, but there is the Turo, so that can actually pick the Gardevoir EX up.
That works
and if there is a Drifloon or Screamtail in combination with a Bravery Charm, that will be what is needed. Gardevoir comes back into play, and all those Psychic Energies are going to pay dividends with a big Screamtail, Roaring Scream to knock out Pheasantipity. A true masterclass here from Benny in Game 1, showing the true power of Gardevoir EX.
Yeah, go starting out at 1-0, and yeah, real shame for Gabriel, really just not putting it together quite at the right moment, not being able to take out the Monkey Dory for 2 prizes. It might not have mattered, honestly, in the end, because I think there could have been a way to take all those prizes regardless if the Monkey Dory was KO'd for 2. But even so, yeah, it's not the nicest way to go out.
Yeah, very heads-up play there from Benny, not getting, overzealous. A lot of players would, see that Drifloon KO and think, okay, well, I could just take, 2 prizes this turn. I have the boss in hand, and then I'll just go ahead and take 2 next turn. But it can be very tricky, There's a lot of plays that, could have been made over on Gabriel's side where, Iono gets played, and now your hand disrupted, and now the Pokemon gets knocked out. A lot of things could have gone wrong there, but, it really, again, was those key early turns in the game. Gabriel missing that turn 2 knockout with Ampu very much. Had everything set up, just needed to find Lugia V-Star, and that miss meant everything went wrong from that point on. Benny took the first 2 prize cards, not something you'd really expect in this matchup a whole lot, but Gabriel did have that cool Thornton tech to take the knockout back, but it really was that double turbo energy causing him to be just 10 damage short of knocking Monkey Dory out. And from there, it was all curtains. Benny had the combination of cards to close the game out, take the knockout with Screamtail, and we'll be up 1-0 in this best-of-3 series.
Yeah, like you mentioned, really heads-up play there from Benny. And with the Gardevoir deck especially, this is the kind of heads-up play that you need in order to do well with it. There's so many intricate sequencing details and so many sort of areas where you have to be careful with what you put on the bench, manipulating your attackers in the right way. So yeah, it's no surprise that a player of Benny's skill level would kind of lean into this Gardevoir deck for this tournament, and clearly already off to a good start of it with 2-0, and now 1 game up in this round 3 too.
Yeah, again, can't emphasize that enough. Everything went well for Benny, but he doesn't really have any necessary great ways to deal with Iron Hands if it came out a little bit earlier. Sometimes you'll see Gardevoir decks running the Enhanced Hammer to get rid of that Legacy energy, but with no counters to it, I wonder here if Gabriel is able to get an early Iron Hands, 1 turn early, the turn he was so close to getting in Game 1. How will that shift the dynamic of this matchup? Let's see how things go. What a starter here for Benny. Does start that Spiritomb, so Feathered in Misfortune already online. The Mesagoza does get played. It will flip tails, so no Pokemon search here for Gabriel. What else does he have to work with, though, in this situation?
Looks like, so yeah, Mesagoza tails not much. There's another Lugia. You don't necessarily need to put that down. You're not really worried about the Gardevoir deck taking a KO on the first turn. That isn't the kind of deck that it is. So yeah, I think you're just happy maybe attaching energy here and passing. Yeah, I think that's totally fine.
So Benny will kick things off. Now, of course, Gardevoir being an evolution deck loves to go first since it can, get those Pokemon into play a little bit quicker since, you technically get 1 more turn before your opponent. But don't underestimate the power of TM Evolution. However, we're just going to see a pass here. Don't even know, did Benny use the Mesagoza? Was that an option? Did he flip?
He did, it was Tails.
Oh, it was Tails. Yeah. That's unfortunate. And now here, big flip for Gabriel. Gabriel also not sitting on much in this hand. I think just has the Jock Supporter and an Archeops. Of course, Read the Wind can bail him out a little bit, but that Lumineon V would be very useful in this situation, and we're just going to see a Read the Wind, draw 3 more cards, not even playing that Jock Supporter card for turn, and Benny now will see if he's got some way to start to develop his board and get some action online. Just kind of grimacing a little bit. It may not be a great situation.
4 tails in a row for
It's just a Tails. Now, does have Iono in the hand and a Curlia, so things are not, over here for Benny, but as things look, will not be able to, deal that quick damage he was able to do in that first game. We'll have to rely off Iono, and I don't even know if those 3 cards really improve Gabriel's situation, so may actually be delighted at the fact of seeing 6 new cards that are totally fresh and could help him out.
It was interesting with the Jacques, right, because I think Gabriel's reasoning behind not playing it was thinking, if Benny has an Iono and I kind of feign weakness in my hand, maybe then that encourages him to not play it, whereas actually, then next turn Jacques can just kind of, and then I'm off to the races. But in this instance, yeah, Benny playing the INO. After getting one Curlier down, discards a Drifloon off of the Refinement. Oh, does find that Radiant Greninja, though, and that Secret Box A-Spec. That's a great draw off the INO.
Yeah, pay attention to Benny's sequencing there. Had a Buddy Buddy Puffin, which could have searched out 270 HP Pokemon or less, but understood that those cards at the bottom, he really did not want to draw into. So great sequencing there from Benny to, not grab those Pokemon out just yet, to wait and draw some cards, and it looks like does have plenty of pieces to, make something work here. We'll get to take a look at these prize cards, see if there's anything super relevant in there. It looks like the Technical Machine Evolution is not in the prize cards. It looks like there aren't too many basic Pokemon, just deciding to play the Hisuian Heavy Ball, not get any basics, and now has knowledge of what cards will be unavailable for the moment.
Yeah, so we can see Benny is eyeing up the discards for this secret box. Let's say Radiant Greninja might be one of them. There are currently no energy in the hand, so makes sense. You probably just want to get that back later. Not going to be too useful a draw card right now, but actually is going to opt to play the Buddy Buddy Puffin first now.
Yeah, it's tough since you got to leave yourself with essentially one card here. It is sort of a hefty price to pay for the secret box, but gives plentiful when open the chest up and see what's inside.
Yeah, exactly.
And what's inside is all of the trainer cards you could ever ask for.
Yeah, well, you've got that Earthen Vessel there, of course, that TM Evolution, as you just mentioned, not prized, so we'll be able to use that to get out some of those Curlier, maybe even a Gardevoir if you want to commit to that already. Yeah, good. And also a supporter for next turn, so that even though you're sitting on a one-card hand, you can just grab, say, a Professor's Research, and then, again, you're off to the races. So Secret Box super strong here, and there we go. Secret Box is guarding, was that an Arven, the Radiant Greninja, and the Counter Catcher.
So we'll see what the supporter card is for choice. It looks like it will just be a Professor's Research, and the item card is an Earthen Vessel, and that makes complete sense, right? You just want to find as many energies as possible to discard, and that will be the plan for Benny going forward. But an excellent start, using the Technical Machine Evolution, evolving into 2 Curlia, and putting the pressure on Gabriel to do what he wanted to do in Game 1, attack with Iron Hands.
Speaking of, Gabriel, after the races with his turn, finally gets ahead on that Mesagosa, so we'll now be able to search for any Pokemon he wants. I'm not quite sure how the rest of his hand played out. There's Professor's Research, so, okay, hold on a second. There's a decision here, right? Do you go for the gamble of a second Archeops so you can discard it with the Research and hope to find Lugia, or do you grab the Lugia V-Star so you can guarantee yourself at least one Archeops out? It's a tough one, but it looks like he's going to opt for the V-Star.
So Lugia V-Star finally making its appearance when Gabriel wanted to on the second turn of the game. And now just comes the question, where is the second Archeops and where is Iron Hands? That is 100% Gabriel's best attacker early on. We will just see the Professor's Research get played, so interesting choice to not grab the Archeops, but maybe having, a little bit of flashbacks from that earlier game. And oh no, I don't think there's any Iron Hands or Archeops to be able to discard, and now Gabriel is put into another uncomfortable position and faced with a choice. Do you Summoning Star and only put one Archeops in play? And that is the choice, and this is going to spell so much trouble. You're taking a knockout onto this Pokemon, but with just one Archeops in play, you leave yourself wide open for it to be knocked out and your entire energy acceleration engine to be shut off completely for the rest of the game.
It feels a bit presumptuous saying this, but almost like feels like in doing this, in the sense you've already lost, right? It's a bit hard. It feels a bit harsh to say that so early, but in this position, like you just said, if that Archeops gets knocked out, I mean, what do you even do? You're only attaching 2 energy per turn. You can go to attaching no energy per turn. This Lugia is not really doing that much, or you can do 200 and knock out the Spiritomb, but you're not really threatening anything here, and it feels like it's so easy for Benny to pick apart your setup from here. Really unfortunate draw from that Professor's Research.
Yeah, maybe the fabled 4 attachment to Iron Hand. I guess you could do 3 attachments to Iron Hand.
Yeah.
This would be a good turn to maybe put that energy on Iron Hands before, the clock starts ticking, and we are going to see the knockout. Gabriel just asking whether or not the stadium's going to stay in play, and it does, and that's just even more advantage to Benny. I really would have liked to see Gabriel just discard that stadium because the game essentially is in Benny's hands this turn. Yeah. Like you said, if Archeops gets knocked out, the door is wide open, and there's a doorstop in that door. It is not closing. It is not going to close from here on out. So just limiting, those small things that are going to give Benny the cards he needs. The Gardevoir EX can be, a little bit annoying to search out. You've only got Ultra Ball for that. The Screen Tail Screamtail is another Pokemon you're going to need. And now this is just even more advantage for Benny. We'll use this Professor's Research, draw 7 cards, and now just needs to find the Screamtail and the Gardevoir, and doesn't even need the tool card for the Screamtail, since the Screamtail, with 4 energies used with Psychic Embrace, does exactly enough to knock out the Archeops.
Yeah, and this is the problem, right? Because if it was another deck, you might think, oh, if my opponent needs Professor's Research, then they can't Boss's Orders, so they can't bring up the Archeops and KO it. But then you have Screamtail, and that can just hit the bench anyway. So no matter what you do, yeah, your Archeops is a bit stuffed.
And there is that Mesagoza being used, and it is ahead. So Benny can grab the Screamtail, saying, look, you gave this to me. I'm going to be using it since you allowed me to search that out. And as long as there is a Gardevoir, Benny will be in a commanding position. You know, we'll only tie things up at 1-1, but it's Gardevoir's powerful endgame and the tempo swing of shutting off shutting off Primal Turbo on the Archeops that will lead to an extremely stronger end and middle game for Benny.
And I think to be fair to Gabriel, even if the Mesagoza didn't stay in play, I mean, Benny was drawing so many cards. I mean, there is even the Ultra and the Nest Ball in hand, so I think he would have found it regardless.
Yeah.
And I think what Gabriel's thinking here is, I need some out to search another Pokemon next turn. So kind of maybe like a slight bit of like vindication there, but I mean, either way, it doesn't really feel great when regardless your very measly setup is already being disrupted.
It's almost like a lose-lose, right?
It is.
If you do this, you leave yourself open to this exact play with Screamtail. And if you wait, then you're just opening your opponent to do what they did in Game 1. Take the first 2 prizes, and it is not a fun spot to be in. Picture perfect here for Benny. 4 energy onto the Screamtail thanks to Psychic Embrace, and even has the Monkey Dory to, you know, move some of these damage counters from the benched Pokemon that just retreated to this active Lugia V-Star, and there it is, Roaring Scream, knocking out Archeops. Gabriel will not be able to use Primal Turbo at all for the rest of this game, and still has 5 more prizes to take. It's going to be a tough hill to climb, and Gabriel's got no climbing gear to get himself up that mountain.
Yeah, what do you do, right? I mean, Gabriel doesn't even play Lost Vacuum, so maybe that could be a way to get an extra KO if it had been the point where Benny had even, you know, over-damaged his own Pokemon to above that, but then it doesn't even matter because it has 8 damage on it anyway. It is just very, very rough here for Gabriel, and I don't see much of a way back for him here. You can knock out the Screamtail, take a prize on something. Yeah, sure, Iono, just try and disrupt the hand a little bit, but you're only putting Benny down to 5 cards, and there's still 2 more Curlier on the bench ready to do Refinement as well. I mean, yeah, it's like you mentioned, maybe time for, you know, free attachment Iron Hands to try and piece together something.
Gabriel's going to play to his outs. He's got no other choice down a game in this best-of-3 series. No help off the Mesagoza, and now has to really think this through. This is not a spot you're in a lot as a Lugia V-Star player. You're used to, you know, having full control, not even having to worry about where your energies go sometimes, since you can just always put 4 energy wherever you want as long as Archeops is in play. But now has to, you know, think a little bit more carefully about how he traverses through this. Will go down to 4 prize cards, but now there is essentially no threats of attackers coming forward. And here we go for Benny. If he can find a way to knock this Lugia out and start removing energies from play, Gabriel is going to have a hard time closing this Game 2 out.
Yeah, and with the bench attachment on the Lugia with the double turbo, you now have to attach another one, right? And you have to find it, and then you have to find another Lugia V-Star, and even when you do, you're doing 180 damage because your damage is reduced by 40, so you're not even KOing any of the support Pokemon 2 prizes if Benny ever puts them down. So yeah, just really not much that Gabriel can do here, trying to play to his outs as best as he can, but Benny is in full control at this point in the game.
Yeah, you see just how aggressive this engine is in terms of drawing cards. Just gets to every turn, discard 3, draw 6. And that is just insanely powerful, especially when you can build up these combo turns and finish off by getting the final pieces you need, thanks to a card like Arven. Grabbing that Bravery Charm, that will not only increase the HP of the Pokemon, but in return, allow these basic Pokemon like Screamtail and Drifloon to deal more damage, and gets the Super Rod as well. And that could shuffle back either the Screamtail, some other Pokemon in play, and you see how consistent and powerful Gardevoir is, given it has time to set up and is not facing super aggressive threats like Gabriel has been unable to produce in the second game.
Yeah, and actually finding that Super Rod was super important because there's only, I think both of the attackers, the one Drifloon and the one Screamtail, were in the discard pile, so able to get them both back now, and I do believe that Benny already had the out to find them. Going to try to go for the Mesagosa anyway as the die goes off the table and gets ahead as well, so doesn't even need to use a card from the hand to find whatever he wants. Going to go for the Screamtail in this instance, and I guess to be fair, you could just go for the Minccino on the bench. Sure, it's only one prize, but that's like the only thing that can build up to any scary amount of damage, so maybe you just take that out straight away.
Yeah, I would agree with that here for Benny. I mean, look, you're at 5 prizes. It's at minimum going to take 3 turns to win this game. So by knocking out Minccino, not only are you continuing on that path to win in 3 games, or in 3 turns, excuse me, but you're putting yourself onto that even prize map, where from there, all you've got to do is just take 2 prize knockouts, and the game will be yours, and the set will be yours as well. 2 Psychic Embrace, Roaring Scream, knocking out Minccino. Now, we do get to see the gift energy get used from Gabriel to, draw up to 7 cards. Not going to be super impactful as we see.
You drew 1, right?
Yeah, 1 card and then the 1 card for turn. And yes, I mean, Lugia V-Star is still up and running, but it's kind of reduced in what it can do.
Yeah, and you can't even try and go for something like a 2-hit knockout on the Gardevoir EX, right? Because you know that Benny plays Professor Turo Scenario, so he's probably just going to pick it up and heal that damage off and then re-evolve into Gardevoir, and then suddenly your turn was basically nothing. And yeah, you can see Gabriel smiling here. I think he knows that his back is against the wall here. He has no reason to not try and play this out to the best he can, so he can, at the very least, I believe with that Mesagosa, did get the heads there, so was able to grab the Lumineon V and can Luminous sign for that Iono, but there's still 3 Curlier out, so you're still discarding 3 and drawing 6 every turn.
Yeah, and Benny is still just in an excellent spot. Even if he doesn't take a knockout next turn, that Monkey Dory damage from the Adrenabrain ability is slowly ticking up onto that Lugia V-Star. Even if Gardevoir attacks into it next turn, it won't be enough to take the knockout, but we could see a similar play that Benny did in that first game, of, putting it so it's almost knocked out, finishing it off with that Adrenabrain ability, and then taking those final 2 prizes. For now, though, Gabriel again, playing to his outs, shuffling his hand, putting it on the bottom. Same for Benny. Both players will draw 4 cards, equal to their prize cards remaining. And we'll see how Gabriel can navigate this situation. It's not looking great.
And actually, that's another point about only carrying the Minccino, right? It's only 1 prize. Therefore, if you do get Ionoed, you're also drawing 1 extra card. So another reason to go for the Minccino instead of the active.
And Gabriel said, I've had enough of you using my Mesagosa. Get it out of here. Finally removes it out of play. Benny has gotten way too much usage out of that card. It is definitely something Gabriel, probably should have gotten rid of a little bit earlier in the game, but better late than never. So action back on Benny, and yes, his hand got disrupted, but he just gets to draw so many cards and thin his deck out of all these pieces he doesn't want. Never going to use that rare candy for the rest of the game. Get rid of it. No more energy in deck. I don't need Earthen Vessel anymore. And it just becomes this process of later in the game, Iono just is only going to give you those good cards that you want. And Benny, after drawing these 6 cards, has a hand full of options. It will be up to him to see, is it time to, take this big knockout? Do I play patiently? But it is just options, options, options. That is the namesake of Gardevoir, because there is so much you can do when you are surrounded by a versatile ability like Gardevoir EX's Psychic Embrace.
I'm trying to think if there's anything that Benny could actually reasonably do to lose this game, something that would actually throw it, other than, I don't know, accidentally flipping the table over. I honestly don't see it. I think no matter what, there's so many different lines you can take here to win. Even just something as simple as this, just go for the Miracle Force. That's completely fine.
Yeah, and because Benny is ahead on prizes, has more prizes remaining than Gabriel, Counter Catcher is just all Benny will need, assuming that Monkey Dory is still able to use Adrenabrain 1 more time. Next turn, Gabriel's back is up against the wall. What can he do to find himself into a position to win the game? I mean, look, if Gabriel can knock out this Gardevoir and knock out a 1-prize Pokemon, it is possible. Looking at his list, there's not anything like the Weird Digger V we see sometimes. That could always be a card that pops out of nowhere. You put it down, you throw a Jet Energy on it, you move all those energies to it, but it's not an option. It's not available here for Gabriel. And I mean, you got to think in the tank, but you kind of just have, a sinking feeling in your gut that there's really no coming back from this spot.
So it looks like it's going to be the boss's orders grab off of a second Lumineon V's Luminous sign. Are you thinking of maybe just, I guess you can bring up the Monkey Dory, right? Just stops that double knockout turn potential. But even then, I don't think it'll be too hard for Benny to find a second Monkey Dory in Dark Energy. I do believe is playing only playing 1. But is there a way to, there's a second Super Rod, so you can just play that to get it back, and then you're good to go again.
We will see Lugia V-Star come down on the bench, and that does now have 2 double turbo energy. So, look, it could take a knockout later on down the line, but this is going to be a 3-turn game plan for Gabriel. And with how much damage is on this Lugia V-Star, with the control Benny has in terms of his board, it's going to be really hard to find a way that Benny does not win this game in 3 turns before Gabriel does.
I don't know. I think with the KO on the Monkey Doria, I would have liked to see Gabriel attack with the active, because in that case, you're kind of forcing more of like a go-around play. So, yeah, but it looks, look, Gabriel has it, or rather, Benny has it already, I think.
Yep, there are the pieces. Super Rod finds the Dark Energy, can put the Dark Energy onto this Monkey Dory. Go ahead and use that Adrenabrain ability to move 30 off the Gardevoir to this Lugia V-Star on the bench. And now the only question here, though, is with this Gardevoir retreating, are there enough energy cards in the discard pile for this Lugia to be able to take a knockout? We're going to see it all happen in flow. So there is the Adrenabrain, knocks out the Lugia V-Star, and there's the boss's orders on Luminion. Benny with a swift and convincing 2-0. Moving to 3-0 here at LAIC, putting himself one step closer to that first day 2 at his first Masters International Championship, and that would be a great way to kick off your rookie season in the Masters division.
Wouldn't it just? Huge congratulations to Benny. Played an absolute masterclass in Gardevoir during that whole series, and really, although, I mean, to be fair to Gabriel, did get a little bit unlucky with the setup on both games actually, but Benny exploiting that to the max and never missing a beat with his setup. Just really knowing exactly the right things to go after and the right things to target to make the most of the fact that there was a slight bad luck on Gabriel's side.
It's 2 sides to the coin, literally and figuratively.
Yes.
Look, it's part of what you have to know when you're signing up for Lugia. They should hand you a permission slip and says, if I lose because I flip tails when I need heads on capturing Roma, I will not complain about it on social media, and I will live with it. And lo and behold, it happened in Game 1 and Game 2 again. Draw-based issues are the #1 cause of Lugia losing games. You can see in theory through Games 1 and Game 2. If Gabriel draws perfectly there, I think Benny gets blown out of the water. But when that didn't happen, Benny had the legroom to deal with the aggression in turn by putting together those multi-turn plays where he took knockouts later on thanks to, some cool plays with the Monkey Dory's Adrenabrain, or with the sheer aggression of the 2 Bravery Charm users in Drifloon and the Screamtail.
And, to be fair as well, I was just, saying about how, yeah, sure, Gabriel got unlucky. There was the whole Lugia draw thing. But in Game 1, he was able to get out both the Archeops, right? The one big miss was kind of, came a turn late, right? So it was the missing of the V-Star on turn 2 instead of having to go for it on turn 3, which meant that then the prize trade was really, really bad for him and it fell in the favor to Benny. But then, of course, there was that mix-up there with the Iron Hands, 100 damage with the double turbo, 10 short of an Ampy very much KO'd a Monkey Dory, which came in as well.
Yeah, luckily, I don't think it necessarily changed anything in that first game. Right. Benny still had the victory the following turn. So, you kind of kick yourself a little bit when you make mistakes like that. You got to take into mind there is the pressure, of all the lights. You're on stage at an international championship. There's not a lot of opportunities for these players, especially, in the regions of LATAM where there's not, our broadcast that we get to do for both Europe and North America. It's a big opportunity and a big honor to be on this stage, no matter what match you're playing, no matter what round it is. And players can sometimes feel that pressure. It might have gotten to Gabriel there, but lo and behold, Benny still had outs. Even if it went correct, even if it went the way that it did, to close this set out, moves to 9 match points, 3-0, an excellent start for him.
Yeah, an absolutely excellent start, both to this, LAIC in general, but also his first IC as a Masters Division player. Like you said, couldn't have asked for a better Masters rookie season beginning, I think it's safe to say.
And that has sort of been the storyline these last couple of years in the Pokemon TCG. Young players, especially those who have aged up in the last few years, having extreme success in the Pokemon TCG, no matter what region you pick, right? Fernando Cifuentes, first-year master, wins Worlds. Go to North America, Andrew Hendrick. You've got Grant Shen, Lucas Zing, a lot of these players. Isaiah Bradner, even if you want to consider that. Lots of players who have aged up within the last 2 or 3 years in the Masters division have had a lot of success. Okay, Bradner's maybe not a great example of that. He's, I think, only a year younger than me, so I'm not going to treat him like a child. But the whole point stands. Young talent is performing in the Pokemon TCG. we're going to see if that continues to be the storyline here this week. And Pokemon is unique in that fact that there is a wide range of ages and skill levels in the Pokemon TCG. It can truly be anyone's game.
And I'll add that in Europe as well. Kaya Licklighter, absolutely on an absolute tear in the seniors division and started doing well. Not quite as ridiculous a beginning season, but has been on stream on the European streams many times as a Masters division player and very much holding her own. So yeah, these senior division players, it seems like, I think there was some of this kind of, I don't know if not Super